at those who don't look like us or have the same surnames or pray the way we do. And at such moments, courage is necessary. At such moments, we need courage to stand up to hate, not just in others, but in ourselves. At such moments, we need the courage to stand up to dogma, not just in others, but in ourselves. At such moments, we need courage to believe that together we can tackle big challenges like inequality and climate change.
However, in today's rapidly growing society, hate is barely paid any attention. The numerous masses of citizens around the world instead ignore the fact that hate surrounds everyone and move through life ignoring the obvious. People worldwide are heavily influenced by unneeded and unjust acts of hatred every day. All across the globe, and especially in America, the people of our country become entrapped by self-ideals that block out our morally sound choices. Hate is found in all shapes and sizes and is plentiful in everyone. Whether you know it or not, all people have an innate ability to stereotype, judge, and create prejudices that in time turn into false representations of people. We spend most of our lives surrounded by people that look and act just like us. We create rigid formulas on who is to be labeled good and who is bad. This system of ranks essentially guarantees that we will continue to see difference without making any effort to understand it. These inborn characteristics about humans lead us all to be a little biased in our own views. By doing this, we are disregarding the beauty in our cultural differences and in the world around us as a whole. By understanding how we as humans work, we can all come together and help to be more open about our differences and bring our unconscious biases to rest. In heavily populated areas, hate can become abundant as people become more self-centered. Instead of using diverse streets as an opportunity to become more integrated, people look for ways to create divisions in society and amongst each other. These kinds of people are becoming more and more numerous, and as we grow as a society with people like this, these attitudes have become the foundation of our everyday interactions. Where else would such a behavior be so common than in the South, a center not only known for its growing economy and population, but also for its urban sprawl and historical notion towards hate. Atlanta has a history of de facto segregation, meaning that segregation happens by fact rather than legally. Historically, we have seen this in schools and neighborhoods throughout the southern portion of the United States. In the 1960s, the idea of blacks and whites living cohesively could not be accepted by much of the South. It was the fear of the other that pushed each group away from each other and into isolation. The thought of living amongst the other was unsettling for most, so they moved. This created a divide between people as they naturally separated themselves from each other. We can even still see these divides today throughout Atlanta. The heart of Atlanta was once divided by a fine line. The city became divided with whites in the north and African Americans in the south, using Road Ponce de Leon serving as the divider. The roads north of Ponce were given different names than the roads to the south.
So in the 1960s, Mayor William Hartsfield, once declared Atlanta the city too busy to hate. And while it's true that Atlanta experienced less racial violence than other places throughout the Southeast, specifically when you compare it to a place like Birmingham, Alabama, to say that there wasn't racial animosity in Atlanta would be inaccurate. Probably one of the best examples of this is Ponce de Leon. So Ponce de Leon served as a dividing line between white Atlanta and black Atlanta. And one of the best examples of this is how roads would change names for seemingly no reason as they crossed over Ponce. Your two best examples of this are Briarcliff, which runs north-south in the northern part of the city, but when it crosses over Ponce, all of a sudden it changes names to Moreland. Another example of this is Monroe, same type of thing. Monroe runs north-south, and as it crosses over Ponce, it changes names to Boulevard. And there's really no reason for this because the road's not changing at all, but the reason the road names were changed was because white Atlantans did not want to live on the same road name as black Atlantans. So they requested essentially that the city change the name of these roads so that their addresses would not be the same.
People of one country, one city, and one neighborhood could not learn to coexist. They could not stand to be associated with each other. This is just one of many examples that show how we as humans prefer, consciously and unconsciously, to be with people that we share many similarities with. This mindset leads to the formation of self-segregated zones that still stand today. This separation and isolation is ignored, and many don't even notice it. Not only do we not notice these changes, but we also fear them. Fear is one of our most powerful emotions and propels us to do things that would be considered malicious, but most of the time it helps to keep us safe. Fear can sometimes create a bubble around our heads, a bubble used to steer us in the right direction as it is an evolutionary achievement. However, this bubble can also create unwanted thoughts or actions that provoke ideas such as racism.
I think fear is the bottom line of hate. I think that's what kind of starts to cause that. I wish I had the answers to why, because then we could stop it. But I do think that there's some innate reason that people tend to be afraid of those. Some people tend to be afraid of those who are different.
When exploring the big picture, people hardly stop themselves to ask the simple questions. As a nation, we do not ask ourselves why everyone around us looks just like us, or why we never became friends with that other group of people. We turn our head at the first notion that we might have a bias. However, everyone has a bias, even if it is unconscious. As humans, we form beliefs about specific groups of people and apply them unconsciously. This is called the unconscious bias.
So when we're talking about unconscious bias, we're talking about a couple of different phenomena that are within humans. Psychologists believe that these are here from an evolutionary standpoint because they've helped us with survival. For example, having prejudice or having bias can actually be safe in some situations. If I'm in an unfamiliar situation and I don't know how to respond to that situation, bias or prejudice can actually help me stay safe by avoiding possible dangerous situations. The problem becomes when we start applying these unconscious biases and these prejudices against humans and the groups that humans put themselves in. Because another natural tendency of humans is to put ourselves into groups. We put ourselves into racial groups, ethnic groups, national groups, socioeconomic groups, religious groups. And we have a tendency to have a preference for our own group over others. You can see this all the time. You can see this in the high school cafeteria. You can see this in neighborhoods where people choose to live. When this becomes a problem is because we don't tend to interact with the other people who are quote unquote different from us. And when that happens, we don't gain an understanding of those people who are, again, quote unquote, not like us. And it begins to slowly drive us apart from each other because we're not putting that effort into actually spending time with people who are different than us. So that's one way in which the unconscious bias can actually lead to segregation, can lead to hate between two different groups. Is that good?